In the previous video, we just made a very simple JavaScript prompt that requests information from the user and then does something with that information. Nothing special, nothing fancy. Now there's a couple things that I want to touch on with this, a couple ways that we can improve this, a couple ways that we can learn more with this, and that's really what you need to start doing. Following along with tutorials is great, but if you never try anything out yourself, if you never say, well, what if I did this or what if I did that, then you're not going to really learn a whole lot because all you did was follow steps. You need to get to that point where you're willing to take risks, where you're willing to try things out and see what happens. And that's when you really start learning things. When you start trying to connect those pieces and say, well, if this worked with that, then maybe I could do this because maybe there's some sort of connection or some sort of similarity or just a curiosity. So in the previous one, we put in this what's your name prompt, and when you put it in, it says hello, whatever the value is. A couple things though. What if you press cancel? So we get this null command, and null was one of the issues that we had in the previous video, was that I was calling the script before the element actually loaded on the document. And so it was giving us a null error. Well, the same thing can happen here too. I've told it to write this text, but I didn't tell it what to do if the user decides that they're not going to give it any input. What can we do about that? So first thing, let's go ahead and open brackets, and we can see our work here. So right now this is very, very simple. Now as soon as the prompt runs and some sort of value is determined based on the user, whether that's an actual string to go into this visitor name variable, or whether that's a null because the visitor has pressed cancel, something is going to load here no matter what, because that's what I've told it to do. However, we could change that. We could do if visitor name, which is our variable right here, does not equal null, then do this. So now it's only going to do this if the visitor has put in some string, something into that prompt box. So if we run this now, we can see this part still works. Hello. And if we refresh it and we press cancel, nothing happens. Now we can do other things in here too. So we've already played with ifs a little bit, so we could go in and do an else. And if you remember the else, it'll do that if the first condition is not met. So here we could instead have a different message, and maybe it says, well, aren't you mysterious? So if we save that and we run this, and if we do web C, we can see that that still works. But if we refresh it and we press cancel, we can see the other command works. Now, we can do this with other things as well. So in addition to that, we could use if-else's to introduce even more commands. Let's try out using an else if to add in other possibilities as well. So what if visitor name equals, what if they put in my name? What happens then? We can make a special condition just for that. And we can save it, and let's see if it works. So, hello Scotty. If we press cancel, little issue there. What if we do my name? So, little issue there as well. So, what happened here was if this didn't work, then it instantly ran to this. this first condition was met, so it automatically ran this and it didn't even check the next one. Let's take care of that first. So the easiest way to do this is probably just to copy and paste this whole chunk here and move it above this one. And that means that this is actually going to be an if because it's at the top. This will become an else if, and this actually can just be else altogether. So it's going to check this one, and then it'll check that one, and then it'll check that one. That should be what happens. So if we save it, and we do webc, okay, that worked properly. If we refresh it and we try Scotty, issue. So why is Scotty hitting this one? So the issue actually is, keep in mind that one equal sign is actually assignment. So when it's running this, it's automatically assigning webc as visitor name because we didn't actually ask it, is it equal? We told it to assign it, so that automatically makes it true and it automatically runs it, and it happened, so right. So we need to have two equal signs for it to check if that condition is true. There we go. So if we say webc, awesome. If we say Scotty, good. And if we say nothing, also good. Now, something to note, right now in the code, it says webc, right? Capital W, capital C. Now, if we press refresh and I type webc, all lowercase, it doesn't work. So it is case sensitive, and that's something important to note. So if you don't want it to be case sensitive, you're going to need to include extra conditions to allow different cases. So I would need to have another one of these with else if and all lowercase. And now if I test it, it should work because the first condition will check false, but the second one will check true, and now it will run that. Now right now this is all happening automatically on the page. In the alerts, we had also attached this to a button. We had attached an alert, a pop-up, to a button. And we had done that by turning this whole thing into a function. So we could do that too. We could make this whole thing inside of a function if we wanted to. So if we did function get visitor name and drop this whole thing inside of a function, it now won't run until that function is called. And so now we have nothing happening. So just like in the alert videos, we could then attach that to a button if we want to, so that way it happens, it occurs once they've clicked that button. And there are other callouts too that we can do. There are other ways that we can have it run at a certain moment in time. Now we can do some other things in here too. Like, what if we want to add some sort of Easter egg in here? So an Easter egg, if you're not familiar, is just sort of like a little hidden nod to something. So, you know, sometimes you get lucky and you'll find an Easter egg, or you might have to do a little of searching, and obviously you would need to understand the reference too. So let's say that we make just a little nod to, actually a nod to one of Google's own Easter eggs. So if you haven't seen it before, I'm actually wanting it to redirect to here. And this is actually a reference to, or sort of an Easter egg to, a video game, but it'll serve our purposes for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the information in here, what happens when this condition is met, to instead be window.location.href, and that will equal this Google URL up here. So we'll just copy and paste that there, and let's save it, and let's see if it works. Alright, so just starting from the top, WebC works, WebC lowercase works, Scotty works, null works, and let's see if our Easter egg works. Zerg rush. And that works too, so there you go. Now, using the same line of code here that we've inputted into the confirmation box from the previous videos, you could make that sort of a prompt that will redirect someone to a new page, or ask someone if they're sure they want to follow a link when they click on that. What you could also do is you could even almost use that as like a password. So it's not going to take you into maybe a private area of the web page unless they know the password. Now there is a problem with this. Don't think that just because of that you can now build secure websites, because exactly the opposite actually. If we go into here, let's actually go ahead and launch it from our folder here because that had some extra brackets code in it to make live work. So open with Chrome, we can press cancel, and if we view the page source, you can see the code here, and we can click on prompt.js, and it's going to show us the code, and we can then see the Easter egg or a password in there if that's what you choose to do. So, not a secure method. If you're wanting to do some sort of password area, some sort of encrypted, protected password, you would need to do something a little bit fancier than that, with a little bit more work than that, something on the back end that's not loading on the front end. When we say back end, front end is what's happening in the user's browser. That data is downloading and is all there on the user's computer if they know how to find it. By the back end, we mean something that's happening on a server that the user doesn't have access to, or hopefully doesn't have access to, if your server is secure. And your computer is sending data there, it's processing it there, it's checking it there, it's looking to see if the password matches there, and then it's telling their computer how to respond, where to go, whether that password is valid or not. So that's important. So you can create a password system here, but don't expect it to be secure, and don't expect it to be private. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the second video on prompts informative and helpful. If so, pressing the like button is super appreciated. And if you want to know when I upload additional videos on this topic or other topics, you can hit the subscribe button as well. Thanks, bye.